Hi everyone, we are from Group 2 and we are going to talk and explain about persuasive voice and passive voice. But before that, let me introduce my friend first.
Adila Setiawan.
Adila Permatasari.
And Irgy Fahreza.
And without any further ado, let's move on to the video.
Hi, I'm Irgy Fahreza and now I'm going to talk about definition of passive voice. Passive voice is a sentence structure where the subject receives or is affected by the action rather than performing it, different from active voice where the subjects perform the action. For like the example, for the active is, the teacher explains the lesson, and then the passive is, the lesson is explained by the teacher. In active voice, the subject, the teacher, perform the action, explains, on the object, the lesson. The focus is on who is doing the action. And in passive voice, the subjects, the lesson, receive the action, the door of the action, the teacher, can be included at the end of the sentence using by, but sometimes it is left out if it's not important or a noun. The focus is on what is being done, who is affected by the action. Now move on to structure of passive voice sentence. Passive voice sentences are formed by combining subject plus a form of the verb to be plus past participle verb 3 plus optional by plus agent. The verb to be changed according to the tense of the sentence. I'm, is, are, was, were, being, been, etc. The past participle is the third form of the verb. Now, let's take a look at a helpful chart that explains how to form passive voice sentence in different tenses. The first one is simple present. For the structures, I'm, is, are plus past participle. For the example, the book is read by many students. Here is the auxiliary verb for the present tense, and read is the past participle. The focus is on the book, not on who is reading it. The second one is simple past. For the structure, was where plus past participle. For the example, the letter was written yesterday. Was shows past tense and written is the past participle. The sentence focuses on the letter, not the writer. The third one is present continuous. For the structure, I'm, is, are, being plus past participle. For the example, the house is being painted now. Is being shows the action is happening right now, and painted is the past participle. The focus is on the house receiving the action. Present perfect. For the structure, has have been plus past participle. For the example, the homework was been completed. Has been was completed recently, and completed is the past participle. The homework is the focus. And the last one is future. For the structure, will be plus past participle. For the example, the project will be finished next week. Will be show the future tense and finish is the past participle. The sentence highlight the project and when it will be finished. In summary, this chart helps you see how passive voice changes with different tenses. In every case, the object of the active sentence becomes the subject of the passive sentence, and the verb is changed to include a form of be, plus the past participle.
Now it's my turn to explain about passive voice, or more specifically about its function and how to change an active sentence into the passive one. Let's dive right in. First, we use passive voice when we want to focus on the action or the receiver of the action instead of the one who performed the action. In simple terms, it's like saying what happens or who what is affected without worrying about who exactly does it. For example, in active voice, the teacher explained the lesson. In the passive voice, the lesson is explained by the teacher. As you can see, we focus on the lesson here, not the teacher. Next, we use passive voice when the door, the one who performs the action, is either no, unimportant, or already obvious. This happens when it doesn't matter who did the action, or we simply don't know. For example, imagine a situation where you hear the car was stolen. You don't need to know who stole the car because the focus is on the fact that the car was stolen, not the thief. Passive voice is a common informal writing like reports, instruction, and academic paper. In this case, passive voice makes the statement sound more objective and neutral. It removes the focus from the person doing the action and makes the sentence more about the action itself. For example, in the report, active researchers conducted the experiment. Passive, the experiment was conducted. Notice how the second sentence feels more formal and focused on the experiment itself. Now, let's look at the simple step to change an active into a passive one as is shown in the slide. The first step is to find the object in the active sentence. This object will become the subject in the passive voice. In the example, active, the chef cooks the meal. Here, the meal is the object, so it will become the subject in the passive voice. Next, we need to change the verb. In passive voice, we use the correct form of to be and the past participle or verb 3 of the main verb. For example, take save cooks the meal. Passive, the meal is cooked by the save. Notice how cooks becomes cooked. Passive, the meal is cooked by the chef. If we don't care about who cooked the meal, we could live by the save out. Let's look at another example. In active voice, they will finish the project soon. In the passive voice, the project will be finished soon. Here, we identify the project as the object. Change the verb will finish to will be finished. And the door is not mentioned because it's not important in this case.
And the next are the example of passive voice sentences. The letter was sent yesterday, the windows are cleaned every week, the report will be submitted tomorrow. The sentences show that the emphasis is on what happens to the subject, not who did it. Next, we have passive sentences with an agent, where the person or thing doing the action is mentioned using by. For example, the cake was baked by my mother, the book is read by many students, the house was built by a famous architect. In these examples, the agent is important or relevant. But do you already know what an agent is? So, in passive voice, the agent is the person or thing that performs the action of the verb, the doer of the action, even though the subject of a passive sentences receive the action. The agent, if mentioned, is the one doing it, so it is included. However, we often use passive sentences without an agent, especially when the doer is unknown, not important, or already understood from the context. For example, the documents have been seen, the decision has been made, the problem is being solved. This focus purely on the action or result, not the person doing it. And there are also a few important notes to remember. Not all verbs can be used in the passive voice. Only transitive verbs, which have objects. And also, when changing from active to passive, pronouns have to change. For example, we becomes by us and he becomes by him. In summary, the passive voice helps us emphasize the result or the process rather than the doer, especially when the doer is unknown or unnecessary to mention. Thank you.